Breaking tonight, a scandal over what looks like an intentional effort to mislead voters explodes, with new video of a key White House advisor underscoring just how stupid he thinks Americans are. Welcome to the Kelly File, everyone. I'm Megyn Kelly. In the last 24 hours, a scandal involving a key White House advisor has blown up. And now we are waiting for some sort of on-the-record explanation from the administration. It started when video surfaced yesterday of MIT economist Jonathan Gruber, one of the key architects of ObamaCare, speaking at a healthcare forum last year, describing on camera the effort to hoodwink what he called stupid American voters.
This bill was written in a tortured way to make sure CBO did not score the mandate as taxes. If CBO scored the mandate as taxes, the bill dies. Okay, so it's written to do that. In terms of risk-rated subsidies, if you had a law which said healthy people are going to pay in, it made explicit that healthy people pay in and sick people get money, it would not have passed. Okay, just like the lack of transparency is a huge political advantage. And basically, call it the stupidity of the American voter or whatever. But basically, that was really, really critical to get anything to pass. And, it's the second best argument. Look, I wish Mark was right. We can make it all transparent, but I'd rather have this law than not. So it's kind of like his reporter story. Yeah, there's things I wish I could change, but I'd rather have this law than not.
That caught fire. And today, Mr. Gruber, who declined our invitation to explain his remarks here on the Kelly File, went on a little-watched daytime broadcast on MSNBC to say his remarks were spontaneous and careless.
The comment and the video were made at an academic conference. I was speaking off the cuff, and I basically spoke inappropriately, and I regret having made those comments.
It was off the cuff. He didn't mean it. But now tonight, more video has surfaced, showing that this was not the first time Mr. Gruber called the American people stupid in an off-the-cuff remark. In this next clip from also last year, Mr. Gruber explains how Democrats played with the language of the Obamacare law so that it achieved their goals by, again, fooling the stupid public.
We said, well, that's pretty much the same thing. But why does it matter? I said, you'll see. And they were posted, and that passed. Because the American voter is too stupid to understand the difference.
Too stupid to understand. Hours ago, the White House distancing itself from Mr. Gruber by refusing to give any on-the-record response to his comments. But that wasn't the White House attitude when it was selling the health care law. In fact, the White House could not get enough of Jonathan Gruber. By 2010, the administration had paid Mr. Gruber nearly $400,000 for his expertise. The White House dedicated a web page to his health care analysis. White House visitor logs reportedly show senior officials there at the White House had a dozen meetings with healthcare advisors, including Gruber, and one of those meetings with Mr. Gruber was personally chaired by the president in the Oval Office. And here's how one top Democrat described Gruber at the time.
The Congressional Budget Office and Professor Gruber are both credible and unbiased sources who are not bought and sold by the insurance industry.
Well, they loved him. They loved him back then. Joining me now, Republican South Carolina Congressman Trey Gowdy, who's a member of the House Oversight Committee and the Judiciary Committee. Congressman, good to see you tonight. Your reaction to that?
Well, happy Veterans Day, Megyn. I can't get past the irony to even get to the arrogance. The most transparent administration since the continent shifted had to rely on artifice and deception to pass its signature piece of legislation. I mean, you can't make that up. He had to lie to people, and then he justified it. So I can't even get past the irony of that to even get to the arrogance of him calling our fellow citizens stupid.
You are a former prosecutor. You're great in a courtroom. Have you ever, this is smoking gun. This is the smoking gun piece of evidence where for years now, the American public has disliked the law, has complained that they felt it was crammed down their throats, that there was dishonesty in the process, that they were not told the full story. And now you've got the chief architect of the law, or one of them, on camera saying, yes, we had to lie because you are too dumb to know what's good for you.
Yeah, it's really serious in a participatory democracy when you tell your fellow citizens that you're either not smart enough to understand the truth or we can't tell you the truth because you wouldn't go along with it. Well, if you wouldn't go along with it, maybe you shouldn't pass the law. It's not the responsibility of your viewers to read 1,000-page bills. Hell, the people who voted on it didn't read it before they voted on it. So it's not my fellow citizens' responsibility to read this bill. I would say this to the professor. Put down the cognac and the lost writings of J.D. Salinger. You want to see how stupid our fellow citizens are, take a look at last Tuesday night, because they rejected you, this bill, and this administration.
They bounced out 28 senators who voted in favor of this law. And yet, Mr. Gruber thinks that the American public is stupid. And yet, they're smarter than he thinks, because they doubted his assertions at the time. They have doubted them ever since. So despite his effort to pull the wool over their eyes, they've been on to these deceptions for a long, long time. This law has never had the majority support of the American people. And yet, it is on the books. They are stuck with it. And now people want to come out and say, it doesn't matter what Mr. Gruber said. All that matters is that we have this wonderful law that people should love, and if they don't, well, it's because, as we told you, they're stupid.
Well, I would hope my fellow citizens would keep this in mind the next time anybody tries to sell them a, quote, comprehensive piece of legislation, whether it's Dodd-Frank, whether it's the immigration bill the president so desperately wants. Comprehensive is Latin for there's lots of bad stuff in here, and he just proved that he is willing to lie. He's willing to lie because he has the arrogance of thinking that he knows what is best for this country, and the citizens and the voters do not. So keep that in mind the next time anybody tries to sell you on a big piece of legislation by calling it comprehensive.
Do you think the White House needs to speak to this now? I mean, we went through the number of contacts he had, personally chairing, the president did, a meeting with him, that touting him as an objective analyst, credible, unbiased, compelling, his Senate testimony. He was presented to us as an honest broker by the administration.
I would love for the president, whom I saw in his purple jacket over in China, to repudiate with this guy. I mean, it's an insult. He insulted the very people, frankly, who put the president in office twice. So I would love to hear somebody other than Josh Earnest apologize for what this professor said. But honestly, at this point, Megan, what difference does it make? I mean, we have the law. That we were sold a false bill of goods. It's going back to court, and they're laughing all the way to the bank because they lied, they got away with it, and they got the bill that they wanted. So my fellow citizens have to keep in mind, fool me once, shame on you. Ever fool me again, shame on us.
Congressman Trey Gowdy, before I let you go, what's happening with Benghazi?
We have a very robust investigative plan that will kick off in December. And Megan, I can tell you, my goal was to have an investigation where witnesses who had never been talked to before felt comfortable coming forward because of the seriousness of our investigation. And that is precisely what is happening. So it is not with a lot of fanfare, and there aren't a lot of public hearings. But trust me when I tell you, we are making tremendous progress.
Thank you, sir. Good to see you.
Yes, ma'am. Happy early birthday.
Thank you very much. Joining me now with more, Bernard Whitman, a Democratic pollster and president and CEO of Whitman Insight Strategies. This is not the first time that Mr. Gruber has been caught misleading us. He said in January that Obamacare was never meant to save money. Don't worry about that. But before it was passed, he said it was a deficit reducer. It was a cost-effective step toward healthcare cost problems. He said once before that if you're a state and you don't set up an exchange, that means your citizens don't get their tax credits. Then when the states decided not to set up exchanges and to go on healthcare.gov and said we want our tax credits anyway, he said, here you go, you can have them. Forget all that stuff I said before. Now he comes out and says, oh, all the stuff we said about taxes, that was BS, and this other stuff, it's all BS. We had to do it because we had to get this law passed, and sorry.
You know what it proves? It proves that Gruber may be a decent policy expert with respect to health care, but he's a political idiot. That's what it proves. I mean, the fact is, the Affordable Care Act has brought down the deficit by almost $100 billion largely because of Medicaid reductions. The fact is the cost of health care is going down. It went up 8% before this law. It's now going up 4%. The fact is 18% of Americans did not have health insurance before the law passed. That's down to 13%. So the law actually is working.
But what he was saying in the first clip, the long one where he said we had to write it in a way where they didn't score it as taxes, that would have been a problem. He was saying that the system is set up to hide its true nature, which is wealth redistribution. He was saying if we said explicitly that we were going to make the young and healthy people pay to help the old and unhealthy people, it would not have passed. Megyn, so we had to lie.
Megyn, I think everybody knew what they were getting. Obama campaigned in this law for 2 solid years. The law was debated for an entire year. He risked his presidency on the law. We lost the House because of the law. I think everybody knew exactly what they were getting. And the Chief Justice last year, Megyn, the Chief Justice of the Supreme Court, Roberts, right?
Everyone knew what they were getting. Is that what you want the viewers to believe?
That it was a tax. Now, of course, politically speaking, could it be sold as a tax? No, of course it could not be sold as a tax. So we called it a mandate.
You're relying on Chief Justice Roberts saying it's clear?
That is called political artifice, right? We actually...
A decision for which he was roundly panned that turned half the country against him. That's your evidence that this law was clear is the most controversial Supreme Court decision in years, where Roberts said it's very clear it's a tax. An argument neither side paid almost any attention to at the arguments.
You know why? Because here's the sad truth. Governments do some amazing things. They provide for our national defense. They build roads and bridges. They make sure that we
rely on people that lie to our faces, like Mr. Gruber.
And with the ACA, they make sure that tens of millions of Americans have health care coverage.
No matter what.
That can't afford
justify the means.
The 8 million people that can't afford health care actually have health care.
The ends justify the means.
No, I'm saying that taxes are necessary to pay for things that government should be responsible for.
Get out there and make the argument. Get out there and tell us that, Professor Gruber.
We don't need to because the law was passed.
That's right. Based on a lie, according to this professor, this architect. Based on a lie.
He was not charged with communicating the benefits of the law.
He was a senior White House advisor on this. He was there
policy,
9 times,
not
Bernard.
on political communication.
Who do you think he was talking about when he was, in that second clip, he's talking about a conversation with John Kerry, with the administration. Repeatedly he met with them, and the decision was to mislead.
No, I don't think the decision was to mislead. I think the decision was, look, you take a policy decision that you want enacted, which is health care, universal health care coverage. We watered that down. We enabled people to get coverage that ordinarily did not have coverage. 8 million people, in fact, are getting that. And in order to pass that, you institute a portion of the law. You call it a mandate instead of a tax. If it had been called a tax,
it wasn't just about the mandate.
It would not have passed.
It was about the deception on who was going to pay. Who was going to pay? It was the fraud that was committed on the young people. That is what was argued before the Supreme Court. The system was set up to hide its true nature. Wealth redistribution. That's what he admitted. I got to go, Bernard. I'm out of time. Great to see you as always.
Thank you, Megyn.
All right, good.